Alright people, so we will quickly discuss about so we have discussed in detail RBCs, we have discussed in detail about leukocytes. So now we are going to discuss the third thing, which is basically platelets. Okay, so now platelets, in many books, in many chapters that I see, platelets and thrombocytes are written as one only. Okay, so platelets and thrombocytes are written, so it's written as platelets or thrombocytes instead of and. There's a little bit of difference. Their functionality is almost the same, that is they help in blood clotting from injury sites, which is very important to prevent the loss of blood. But thrombocytes are basically contained by all vertebrates except mammals. So all vertebrates except mammals will have platelets in the form of thrombocytes, and found in mammals only. Platelets are found in mammals only. So the only difference, there is another difference basically. Platelets are without nucleus and thrombocytes are with nucleus. So these are enucleated and these are with nucleus. So platelets are just found in mammals, whereas thrombocytes are found in all vertebrates except mammals. So there are two differences between thrombocytes and platelets. Their functionality is the same, that is they help in blood clotting. However, the little difference that they have is in the containment of nucleus and where they are present. They are present in mammals, platelets, and thrombocytes are basically present in all vertebrates except mammals. Okay, so now we'll quickly look at some of the features of platelets, because here we are concerned with a blood that is there in humans. Okay, so we are studying circulation in humans primarily, so we'll deal with platelets out here. They are found as cytoplasmic fragments. Now understand this word, cytoplasmic fragments, which means that a cell has a cytoplasm and the fragment of it, from that fragment of it platelets are formed. So they are formed as cytoplasmic fragments of giant cells present in the red bone marrow. So there are some giant cells which are basically present in red bone marrow, and platelets are formed as cytoplasmic fragments of those giant cells. Okay, so obviously these are known as megakaryocytes. Now obviously what will happen is the nucleus is not, so let's say this is the fragment from which platelets is formed. So these are known as megakaryocytes. Okay, platelets are formed as cytoplasmic fragments of giant cells which are present in the red bone marrow. So these giant cells are known as megakaryocytes, from which platelets are basically formed. So obviously they would not have a nucleus. They would not have a nucleus. The confusion about platelets is, see in RBCs, in the structure itself we see that there are no nucleus. But the problem about platelets is, when we see their cell, so this is like the platelet cell, we will see something of a nature of nucleus in the diagram, which creates a confusion that whether they are enucleated or they contain a nucleus. So what happens is, this is basically a platelet cell which is basically oval in shape. However, there is a dark portion in the middle. Now this dark portion in the middle confuses us with whether it is a cell which contains nucleus or not, but this is not nucleus. This dark portion is not nucleus. It is basic cytoplasmic granules. They are located in the center and compactly arranged. It's just that they are cytoplasmic granules which are compactly arranged in the center. This is, they are located in the center and they are compactly arranged. That is all about it. Okay, so they are compactly arranged and they are located in the center of, and they give, or rather create, a confusion that they are nucleus, but they are not. Okay, in reality they are not nucleus, they are just located in the center. So they are dark in the middle, and so we have seen that in the formed elements of blood, formed elements or corpuscles, formed elements out of the three, that is RBC, WBC and platelets, to be very precise, mature RBCs, young RBCs contain nucleus, mature RBCs do not contain nucleus. So these are enucleated, and just now we saw platelets are also enucleated. Platelets which are present in mammals are enucleated. Okay, but they have a structure which gives the appearance that the cell contains nucleus. It's just not nucleus, it's some granules in the cell which are compactly packed in around the middle of the cell, and that gives the appearance that they are containing nucleus. But in reality they don't contain nucleus, they are also enucleated. enucleated. They are also enucleated. So out of the blood cells that we have, blood corpuscles that we have, or we can say the formed animals of the blood, so RBCs and platelets are the ones which do not have nucleus. Okay, so talking about their size, they are approximately 2 to 3 microns, 2 to 3 micrometers. The platelet count which is there in blood is approximately 2.5 to 3.5 into 10 to the power of 5 millimeter cubic, or we can say 0.25 to 0.35 million per millimeter cubic. This is the normal platelet count range. Okay, slightly here and there is possible. Lifespan is very short, that is 7 to 10 days. Okay, very short lifespan. If platelet count decreases, then we call this as thrombocytopenia. This feature is known as thrombocytopenia if the platelet count happens to decrease in an individual, and if the platelet count increases, we call this as thrombocytosis. Okay, so platelet count decreases, it is known as thrombocytopenia. If the platelet count increases, it is known as thrombocytosis. Okay, what is the function? We all are aware of the function in some way or the other, because this is something that we have studied in lower and earlier standards as well. The function is primarily blood clotting. Now, how does this blood clotting trigger? It is triggered by an injury. If there is an injury to the platelets in the blood, it triggers the release of an enzyme which is known as thromboplastin, So the moment there is an injury to the platelets in the blood, it triggers the release of an enzyme which is known as thromboplastin, and the clotting. So this thromboplastin is also this thromboplastin basically starts the clotting procedure in the blood. Clotting procedure means that there is a mesh of cells that is formed at the injury site which blocks the blood from coming out. It's like, you know, in households you have seen that the drains that we have to drain out water, if a lot of garbage collects at the mouth of the drain, the water doesn't go, it starts to block in the basin. Okay, in kitchen basins we have seen that if there is a problem in that pipe, or some blockage has happened due to the collection of solid garbage, so the water will not go, and that is what happens in platelets. There is an injury in the platelets, the injury site from where the blood is supposed to come out, it will not come out. Okay, so that is called the thromboplastin or the clotting factor. Platelets also release serotonin. Now, what is serotonin? It's a vasoconstrictor. Okay, vasoconstrictor means it constricts the vascular bundles which carry blood. Okay, so this is all about platelets. Now, if we have to understand thrombocytes, thrombocytes, what would be their function? Again, their function is exactly the same, blood clotting. So they are present in all vertebrates except mammals, and they are nucleated. Now, they don't contain nucleus. Platelets don't contain nucleus. Thrombocytes will have a nucleus. Platelets are oval shaped and these are spindle shaped. So the nucleus will be contained somewhere here, and this is how a spindle shaped thrombocyte will look like. Okay, so these are some basic differences between thrombocytes and platelets. They perform the exact same function of blood clotting. It's just that one contains nucleus, the other one doesn't. One has an oval shape, the other one is spindle shape. So these are some basic differences. One is present in only mammals, and the other one is present in all vertebrates except mammals. Okay. Okay, so we will now talk about, so we have discussed the various blood components, plasma, and then we have discussed what is basically thrombocytes, erythrocytes and platelets. So now we will move on to the next thing which we have as blood groups. Very important because it's an individual characteristic, and if you notice, most of your important documents as well as your I card always will have a blood group. The reason why it is that way is because blood groups are very important during emergency cases, and one blood group cannot be transfused with the other. So it's very important that we have a clarity on what exactly are blood groups. Now, blood groups, which means that the blood that we are having has been classified into a particular group. Why and how is this possible? That is something that we are going to explore and learn here. Okay, so blood group, this is called the ABO system in humans. Okay, in humans this is called the ABO system. So this ABO was first explained by the scientist Landsteiner, and this AB group was first explained by De Castella and Starling. So these were basically the scientists who were involved in explaining the blood groups. Now, how is a blood group formed and why do individuals have different blood groups? So blood group is basically formed due to inheritance combination. Okay, so inheritance, that is, and this type of allelism, we have studied this and we will rather be studying this in multiple allelism, which is basically a feature in inheritance. Okay, so multiple allelism, when we talk about the principles of inheritance, it is a type of allelism. So alleles are basically characters which are there, and how is it formed? So it is controlled by more than 2 alleles. So if you look into the Mendelian theory of combination, in the Mendelian theory of combination there are only 2 combinations that are possible, but here it is basically multiple allelism, 3 combinations are possible. Okay, so in Mendelian or normal genetic, 2 alleles are involved that is responsible for a trait. Here 3 alleles are involved. So this is IA, IB and IO. Okay, IA, IB and IO. So every individual will have only 2 out of 3. So every individual will have just 2 out of 3 dominant. So if we see, IA and IB are basically dominant characteristics and IO is basically recessive. IO is recessive. So we are first talking about the formation of blood groups. What are the characteristics responsible for the formation of blood groups? Now obviously all these will be coming from both the parents, okay, and the individual can have only 2 out of 3. So there are 3 possible combinations, 3 alleles, but it will show multiple allelism, which means that the characteristic traits of 2 will be displayed. Now what would be the possible combination? So the possible combination is IA. What could be the next one? IA, IB, 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 IA, IO, IB, IO, IO, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. So these are basically the possible combinations. Okay. This combination of IA will give us obviously a blood group, and if you notice, since it is made up of IA and IA, this is homozygous combination. This is basically a homozygous combination. Let's say about IAIB. So this will give us AB blood group, and this is what? This is a heterozygous combination. Now understand this, in Mendelian theory we have seen that one allele dominates in case of 2 alleles which are present. So let's say, you know, tall and tall, which we have seen for pea plant. So this is tall and dwarf. In case this tall will predominate in case of a heterozygous combination. So in case of a heterozygous combination, the dominant will exhibit its characteristics. But here it is multiple allelism, which means that both A and B will actually dominate, and the blood group will be AB, not just A or not just B. Both will behave as dominant alleles. Okay, so although it is a heterozygous combination, both will be able to represent their characteristics. Okay, now B and B will obviously have B as the blood group. This will be the blood group. Okay, and this is again homozygous. This is homozygous. Okay, again IA and IO, this will be A blood group. This will be heterozygous because we have O. Now as I said, O is behaving as recessive. So O will behave as recessive. So here the dominant blood group will be A. So it is heterozygous. Again IB and IO, B blood group. This is heterozygous. IO and O, this will be O blood group, and this will be homozygous recessive. This will be homozygous recessive. So if we look at the genotypes, all these are basically different genotypes. So how many genotypes are we having? 6. So these are basically 6 genotypes of blood combinations. So we have 6 genotypes of blood combinations. Now if we look at the phenotypes means what is the result? A, one phenotype, so this is basically 1, okay. A, B, the other phenotype, plus 1. We have B, the other phenotype, and O as the other phenotype. So we will have 4 phenotype combinations, okay. So in blood group we have these types of phenotypic and genotypic combinations. Again, it is multiple allelism, very different, a little different from Mendelian theory, wherein there are only 2 alleles which are there. Here 3 alleles are basically present, and again in the 2 allelism we have the AB group, in which both of them will be predominant. If it's a combination of A or O, A will be predominant, B and O, B will be predominant, because O group is regarded as a recessive group. However, in this case both will be predominant, okay. So this was a little gist about how blood groups are formed. Now we will go into the detailing of blood groups, okay. Okay, so we are going to see some more things about the blood donors and all. So the blood group donor, okay, let's say we have represented it as A, B, AB and O. So we know that there are, the RH factor is going to be considered later. So A, B, the blood group may be AB or O, having alleles as A and A or A and O. Blood group B has alleles alleles B and B or B and O, both A and B and O. So let's look at it, okay. So let's say the donor is of blood group A. So if the donor is of blood group A, let's say this is basically the recipient's blood. From this portion we have the recipient's blood. So if the recipient's blood has A, then it will have B, okay. Now let's say the recipient's blood has A. So will there be clumping of blood? Will there be clumping of blood? See, the blood group donor is A, donating blood to the recipient's blood group. So let's say the recipient has blood group B, okay. So let's look at it. The recipient has blood group B. Now blood group B will produce antibody A, right? Blood group B will produce antibody A, and this antibody will react with the antigen which is carrying by the donor's blood. So then there will be clumping of blood. So this dark region or green region basically represents clumping of blood. But A and A will be resulting in no clumping, because blood group A will have antibody B, and this antibody B will not react with the antigen A, okay. Antibody B will not react with antigen A, okay. Now let's see if the donor has or rather recipient has AB blood group, will clumping happen? No. Why? Because we have seen that in AB blood group no antibodies are there. In AB blood group no antibodies are there, antigens are produced, okay. In the RBCs we will have both the antigens A and B, and since in the RBC we have both the antigens A and B, there will be no antibody present here, because of which there will be no coagulation or there will be no clumping effect of blood, okay. So no clumping effect of blood happening here. If it is an O blood group, then what will happen? See, O blood group results due to, so O blood group results only due to recessive combination. Now in O blood group obviously both the antibodies A and B are produced. Since O is a recessive allele and a recessive allele doesn't produce proteins, so there will be no antigens on the surface relating to blood. So what will happen is only A and B antibodies will be produced, and if you transfuse, or rather the donor is A, so this antibody A will react with antigen A of the donor, and again it will result in clumping of blood. So a person having blood group A cannot donate to a person having blood group B, and cannot donate to a person having blood group O, because that will result in the clumping of the blood. The person can only donate blood to a person having blood group A or AB. Similarly, let's look at blood group B. Very simple. So in blood group B, what we will have is antigen. This will carry antigen A, sorry, antigen B. Okay. Now a person having blood group A, the recipient, if the blood group is A, obviously the antibody will be B, and antibody B will basically react with antigen B, and this will result in the clumping of blood, again very fatal. So this cannot be administered. A person having blood group B, if he or she donates blood to the person having blood group B, so blood group B, as we look at it, it will have antibody A. Antibody A will not react with antigen B, which is there, so it can be transfused. Again, blood group A, B, we know they don't have any antibodies. Blood group A and B, they don't have any antibodies in the plasma, because of which it can be easily administered. So yes, it can be administered. Again, O will create a problem. Why? Because in O we have both the antibodies A and B present, and antibody B will react with antigen B, and hence it will create a problem. Okay, so again we cannot administer this. Okay, let's say the donor is basically having blood group AB. When the donor donates blood to a person having blood group A, what will happen is blood group A will have antibody B in it. It is producing antigen A, so it will have antibody B in it. Antibody B will react with antigen B, because both the types of antigens are present in their plasma surface, and again clumping will happen. If this is donated to blood group B, the same problem will be created. So this will also be blood group B. The same problem will be created. Blood group B, a person having blood group B, if the recipient has blood group B, there will be antibody A that will be produced, and antibody A will react with So blood group B will have antigen A, and this will react with this. So again there is a problem. Okay. So now let's look at AB. So person having AB blood group, if he donates to a person having AB blood group, here the antibodies are absent, here also the antibodies are absent, so there will be no reaction, because reaction happens between antigens and antibodies. Antigens are present here, antigens are present here, both don't have so this is possible. This is fatal, this is also fatal. Again in O we have both the antibodies A and B, and these will react with both the antigens A and B. Fatal. Okay, this will result in clumping of blood. Okay, let's come to blood group O. So this is an universal donor. Why? Because it has just got A and B. So if a person has blood group A, it will have antigen A and hence antibody B. Antibody B, since this doesn't have any antigens, blood group O will only have antibodies, it will not have any antigens, so no reaction. Okay, again blood group B will have antibody A, blood group B will have antigen B, and against antigen B they will have antibody A. Antibody A, no antigens present here, so no reaction. Okay, so this can very well be administered, this can be very well administered. AB, again in AB blood group we know that only antigens are produced, no antibodies are present here, and again here we have no antigens, so this can easily be administered. Now let's look at O. Okay, so O is here a problem, because here also we have antigens and here also we have antibodies and antibodies. This will result in clumping of blood. Okay, so we can say that if you have blood group A, antigen on RBC which will be present will be A, antibody in plasma. Just one moment, people, just one moment. I'm getting disconnected here. I should have kept my mobile switched off. Just one moment here. So sorry. Okay, so where were we? Okay, yes, okay, this will, I'm so sorry, this will be very much acceptable. This is O, so no antibodies and antigens. Yes, this will also result in no clumping of blood. So if you look, the person who has got O blood group can give safely blood to A, can give safely blood to B, can give safely blood to AB, and can give safely blood to O as well. So this person is known as an universal donor. Whereas if you see this okay, a person who has got AB blood group can receive blood safely from a person having A blood group. A person having A blood group can receive blood safely from a person having B blood group. A person having AB blood group can receive blood safely from a person having AB blood group, and similarly a person having AB blood group can receive blood safely from a person having O blood group. So in this case, this is known as a universal recipient, and this is known as a universal donor. This is known as a universal recipient. This is known as a universal recipient. Okay, so person having AB blood group can receive blood from anyone, and a person having O blood group can donate blood to anyone. Okay, so that is one thing. Okay, so we have seen the only challenge here is clumping of blood. Clumping of blood, if it happens, can really prove fatal. Okay, now in blood group A, we have the antigen present on RBC as A, the antibody which is present in the plasma of that RBC will be B. So it can donate blood to a person having A blood group or AB blood group, because AB blood group doesn't have any antibodies present, it only has antigens. So it can receive blood from a person having A blood group or O blood group. Okay, a person having blood group B, the antigen which will be present on the RBC will be B. Corresponding to this antigen, the antibody which will be present in the plasma will be A. So this person will be able to donate blood safely to a person having blood group B. Okay, why? Because blood group B will have antibody A in it, and hence it will not react with antigen B present here. Okay, or AB we know is free of any antibodies. Okay, so it can receive blood from again a person having blood group B or O. O is a universal donor. A person having blood group AB cannot at all receive blood from a person having A or B. Okay, so the antigens, both antigens A and B are produced. They do not have any antibodies. That's one good factor because of which they will only be able to receive blood from a person having AB blood group. Okay, now they can donate blood to AB blood group. However, they can receive blood from a person having A blood group, B blood group, AB blood group or O blood group. So they are known as universal receivers. However, they can just donate blood to AB blood group. They have antigens A and B, so they cannot donate blood to a person having either antibody A, which is a blood group of B, or having antibody B, which is a blood group of A, or having O. So they cannot donate blood to any person having any of these antibodies A, B, and in O the antibodies are present in that's the reason they will not be able to donate blood to anybody except for a person having blood group AB. Okay, now we come to the person blood group O. So the antigen which is present on RBC is none, because of which the antibody that is present in the plasma is AB, and hence it will be able to donate blood to a person with having blood group A, B, AB or O, and hence it can receive blood only from O. Okay, so these are couple of things. So the recipient's body basically has antibodies, and this is produced in the plasma since birth. Okay, so it is there in the plasma since birth. So recipient's body will have antibodies in the plasma of the RBC, and there is since birth. So during transfusion, what happens is agglutination occurs only if the donor's blood contains the corresponding antigen to the antibodies present in the recipient's blood. It's not the other way around, and we will see why. Okay, so if the donor's blood contains antigen which is against the antibodies, corresponding to the antibodies present in the recipient's blood, then it will result in agglutination, which is very fatal. However, if antibodies of the donor are not important, why? Because the donated plasma gets mixed with the large amount of recipient's blood. So the plasma, we are not talking about the donor's plasma. The donor's plasma will have their own antibodies, but the donor's plasma gets mixed and gets diluted. So a large amount of it gets mixed. So the recipient's blood gets diluted and negligible agglutination happens. So very less amount of negligible agglutination happens. So we can see from here that the blood group O is a universal donor, however can receive blood only from a O group, because blood group O has both the antibodies A and B and they will simultaneously react with antigens. So it has to receive blood from an antigen less of A and B blood group. So that can only be possible if the donor's blood is O. So the donor's blood group O. Okay, AB is a universal acceptor. It can receive blood from all the blood groups as we have seen, but it cannot donate blood to any of these blood groups except AB, because AB doesn't have any antibody, but the other blood groups have antibodies, and AB will have antigens A and B on their surface, which will react with antibodies A and B. So very important for transfusion of blood, a very simple and procedure to understand, okay, if we have the basics clear. So please go through this. If any questions you have, please feel free to post your comments for clarification.